Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Kashif Kamran, AA Expert Tutor. ACCA September 2025 exam results are out. And as with every exam result, there are two outcomes, success and failure. Today I'm focusing on the side of failure. If you have flunked in the AA paper, what should be your strategy moving forward? Now, when the result is announced and you got to know that you flunked in the AA paper and you were expecting to pass, I believe, and this is quite realistic, that the first 2 to 3 days is very disturbing. You might be in a state of shock, it's difficult to overcome it, and you might be feeling demotivated. But as a student, you need to realize that that's not the end of things for you. I always tell my student that if you have failed, basically a failure is a success in progress. You need to overcome that. You need to overcome your issues and weaknesses. You need to investigate where you went wrong on the day of your exam for September exam sitting. And you need to devise a timetable and prepare yourself in a robust manner for the December 25 exam settings. But yes, the first day or the first 2 days or the first 3 days could be very, very dejected. You have to recover yourself back. You need to bring yourself back to the track of motivation. You need to look ahead at December 25 exam setting and do your best. Now, in this session today, I'm focusing on the sort of questions which comes from student or the sort of counseling the students are looking for from a tutor after they have failed in the AA paper. Let's open up the session. The first thing which you should focus on as a student after you have failed the AA paper is to self-evaluate yourself, self-appraise yourself, where things went wrong for you. Honestly, you were in the exam scenario. You were in the real exam scenario. So you are the best judge to define, to explain that what was the issue in the real exam? What was the problematic area in the real exam? Was it the section A? Was it the OTQs, which you think you underperformed? Or was it the section B? Was it the constructed response questions? So you need to investigate. You need to identify that in the exam scenario, did you feel panicked, stressed out? Uh, did you lost your emotional stability at a certain point in time? Did you took some unwise decisions in your exam time? Where things went wrong for you? Were you underprepared? Did you got something in the exam paper which you have not studied? Did you got a question which you have not looked for, not practiced for? There must be something. I know it's very difficult to absorb a failure when you were expecting a pass. But the examining team is not your enemy. The marker is not your enemy. There was something wrong in your paper, and that's the reason you failed. So you have to identify that. You need to work on that, and you need to move on for the December 25 exam sitting. Yes, that's a different question. That should I go for March 26 or December 25? We'll come to that question in few minutes. But self-evaluation is the first thing which you should do as soon as possible once you overcome that demotivation phase or once you overcome that shock you got on the day of result. And then you sit down doing your self-evaluation and devise a timetable. Was it the first time you failed in this AA paper, or you had been failing in this paper for the last 2 to 3 exam sittings? Because then you need to devise a different approach. If it is the first time you failed into this paper, you need to you need to see how much marks you got. Were your marks in 40 plus or under 40? Because both of them have different strategy to work on. I'll just come to that. If you failed in 40 plus or if you failed under 40, both have a different strategy to work on. But was it the first time you failed in the double A paper? And and how much marks you got? And is it like you're failing in the double A paper for last 2 to 3 exam sitting? Because some students do struggle to pass the double A paper and on average take 2 to 3 exam sittings. Then in that sort of a case, you have a different exam strategy to work on for your upcoming exam sitting. So I'll be building up my discussion on that. Were you enrolled under a tutor specific course for September exams, or you did a self study for September 25 exams? Yes, if you were doing a self study, definitely you should think about enrolling in a course. But if you were enrolled in a course, you can have a consultation with your tutor. You can have a guidance from your tutor that what should be the way forward. Because definitely, if you failed, the point number one, self evaluation is the key. Do the self evaluation, then reach the tutor and ask an advice from the tutor that this is my self evaluation, this is the timetable I'm putting in. Do you agree with this? Do you want something to be added to it? Can you recommend me some better approach to my device timetable, because you are more experienced as a tutor, you're teaching, you know why students fail. So can you share your experience with me? So that's the difference basically of enrolled under a tutor specific course. But yes, if you were self-studying, then you need to rethink that, was it wise? Should you enroll for a full course or a crash course for AA for your December 25 exam study? And again, how much marks you scored would devise the strategy. Now, this question will help me broaden my discussion. Marks. First time failed or failing for the last 2 to 3 attempts, you were enrolled under a tutor or you were doing self study. Before we devise a strategy, the point number four is very important. Did you got marks which were 40 plus or under 40? Because generally, if the marks are in like 45, 46, 47 or more till 49, we consider that as a good failure. We consider it as a failure where you were lacking on the exam techniques, but you were not lacking on the side of technical side, knowledge side. But yes, if your marks are under 40s, there is a risk that you had some technical lacking, you had knowledge lacking, you didn't went over the syllabus very well, or you did some selective studies. But yes, 40 plus score means that you were well prepared, but you had some lacking of exam techniques, particularly for the constructed response questions, how you blended the answer, how you wrote the answer. Was there something missing in your answer? For example, you're writing a weakness, but you're not telling why it is a weakness, or you're writing an ethical threat and you're not telling why it is an ethical threat, or you're missing upon the why in your writing of your answers. Could be some reasons why your marks got dripped down. But the marks evaluation will help you devise a strategy for the next exam sitting. Should you be going for December or March? It is quite possible that when the result came out for September, you have already started preparing yourself for another paper for December, and you've already done 50% of it. Now, that's another question. The paper I was preparing for December, and then the result came out for September and I got flunked in AA. Now, what should I do? Should I continue with the paper I was preparing and defer the AA to March? Or should I do both the AA and the paper I was preparing in December? Or should I defer the paper I was preparing to March and do the AA in December? So, see, there could be multiple probabilities here, and each one needs a proper guidance. What approach is good for me? Just past paper practice, or revising the notes, revising the topics, and then doing the past paper? Yes, it depends upon the marks. If your marks are under 40, then revision of the notes, revision of the technical content before you sit down to practice is important. But if your marks are over 40, Just spending time with the past papers, getting your answers checked from a tutor, getting a checking facility from a tutor would be very, very important. Reading through the examiner reports will be very important if your marks are into late 40s, because you need to identify the exam techniques. You need to find the better ways of writing the answer. You need to get a tutor feedback on your answers where you are going wrong. Feedback on your answers is critical if you are failing into late 40s, because there is some sort of a lacking in terms of exam technique which you are going through, and that's the reason you failed into late 40s. So better get a feedback on your answers from your tutor. December 25 or March 26, which should be the ideal setting? I just had a word on that, because it is quite possible that you were preparing for another paper for December and you got your result and you failed in double A. Now, what to do? I believe if you failed in 40s and you just need to fine tune and you just need to spend time on the past paper. So, the paper you failed, the double A, and the paper you were preparing, you should go for both in December, number one. If your marks are in 30s and you had a bad failure, then you need to revise the notes, revise the lectures, revise the technical content, and then do the past paper. That will take a lot of time. And then you need to understand your challenges. You need to understand whether you are a full-time student or a part-time student, you're doing a job. Is it feasible for you to go with two papers? You also need to look at your financial constraints of booking the exams. And in all sort of things, then you need to decide that should I take one in December and one in March? So ideally, the paper you failed, because you know it, and you still have 45 days after you failed to appear for the December exams. So I think 45 days is a good enough time to get back on track and appear for the same paper. And the paper you were preparing, if you can do it in December, do it in December. But if you have any financial burdens, some financial implications, or you're doing job somewhere and you think this will be too much for me, then defer the paper you are preparing to March 2026. And if you have no financial problems and you're not doing job, you're a full-time student, you can go for both the papers, the one you failed and the one you were preparing for, in December 2025. Now, how to prepare yourself, how to bounce back in 45 days. You failed, and or you're struggling to pass the double A paper, or even you're studying the double A paper for the first time, irrespective. What sort of a strategy you should be adopting over the next 45 days for the December 25 exam sitting? I've already done a strategy video on that in the last 24 hours. It's now available on my YouTube channel. You can simply go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Kashif Kamran, and you will find that video as like the first 10 videos on my channel. And still, you can use this link, which is bit.ly/AA 45 days, and you'll reach the destination to see the guidance video on what you should be doing over the next 45 days to pass the double exam. I hope this guidance about the possible questions which pop up in a student mind when he or she fails the double A paper, the sort of things that are going in your mind, the possible scenarios which are building in your mind, this particular session would help mitigate them. You will find a better approach, a better mechanism to devise a timetable. Watch the 45 days exam strategy guidance video and sail to success in December 2025 exams. If you still need any further guidance, you can reach me on my WhatsApp number, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Your tutor for AA Kashif Kamran signing off from this session.